Find out what's going on in your community by Find out what's going on in your community by tuning into Big Fox News on WYDC at 10. Too hot. Find out what's going on in your community by tuning into Big Fox News on WYDC at 10 p.m. or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. Find out what's going on in your community by tuning in to Big Fox News on WYDC at 10 p.m. or visit our website. Find out what's going on in your community. Find out what's going on in your community by your community. Find out what's going on in your community. Just going to make it worse, huh? Find out what's going on in your community by tuning. Find out what's going on in your community by tuning in to Big Fox News on WYDC at 10 p.m. or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. Find out what's going on in your community by tuning in to Big Fox News on WYDC at 10 p.m. or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. Watch Special Edition Big Fox News on WYDC at 10, right after the game. Your only station with primetime local news. Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I thank you so much for joining us this morning. We've got a lot to cover. Of course, a big day on tariff news. I'm not sure if it came as a big surprise. It seemed as if it was a story destined to come to some conclusions quickly, and that looks like we're somewhat there. 30-day stoppage on the tariffs. We're going to tell you about not only what we know, but also what the media is saying. First, let's go through a couple comments after yesterday's program. Some we missed that came in during the program, some after. Trump is a businessman, says this viewer, and the rule of thumb is you have to spend money to make money. So obtaining assets and tariffs will work in time, and the USA will be the best again. Thank you. A comment from a different viewer. Hello, Frank. Well, hello. My comment is a wave. I'm reacting to the tariff wars and Chuck Schumer's crocodile tears while he was promoting Mexican beer, Corona, and avocados. I think it's off-putting when we have breweries like Genesee, based in Rochester, New York, since 1878, to make these remarks, but it reinforces what we know about this disdain for President Trump and our republic. Yes, good reference there. Genesee beer. Born and praised, I think their slogan used to be, born and praised in Rochester, New York. And you never really see that, even at the state fair and places like that. You never really see that highlighted or promoted. So very good point. Thank you for those comments. Now there's a few, well, you know a little bit about what happened yesterday, so we're not going to go into it too in depth. Take a look at it from maybe a media perspective and some what people are having to say. But the Mexican president did make a deal with Trump to pause the tariffs for 1 month as she put 10,000 troops on the border. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth later on. But as part of the temporary pause, the Mexican president agreed to reinforce the U.S.-Mexico border with 10,000 personnel from her country's National Guard to help crack down on fentanyl and illegal immigration into the U.S., per statements from both Trump and Sheinbaum. The U.S. also agreed to ramp up efforts to prevent the trafficking of weapons into Mexico. I just spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. It was a very friendly conversation, Trump said. We will have negotiations headed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, and high-level representatives of Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with President Sheinbaum, and we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. So that broke somewhat early yesterday, actually pretty quickly after the program, unfortunately. And then, but I think that is interesting that Rubio, Bessent, and Lutnick are going to lead the negotiations with Mexico. It's good to have those names involved, while also signaling that he too will be part of the negotiations. When a reporter suggested that Mexico got out of the tariffs, Trump emphasized nobody's out. Is there any chance that Canada or China could also get out of the tariffs after you struck a deal with Mexico? He said, well, nobody's out. But the team had a great talk with Mexico before emphasizing a need to stop fentanyl and illegal aliens from entering the United States. So then, soon after, we learned of the call between Trudeau. It's interesting how that works. So explain that to me. So he stepped down, but he's not down. He just must not be running for re-election, but the wording may be different. But President Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a temporary deal Monday evening to halt the imposition of 25% tariffs on each other's imports, for 30 days while final border security pact gets hashed out. Trump and Trudeau spoke on the phone twice yesterday before announcing the agreement with Canada set to ensure 10,000 troops will be stationed at the northern border, and the Prime Minister vowing to take steps to crack down on fentanyl smuggling. Quote, Canada has agreed to ensure we have a secure northern border and to finally end the deadly scourge of drugs like fentanyl that have been pouring into our country. Canada will implement their $1.3 billion border plan. As president, it is my responsibility to ensure the safety of all Americans, and I am doing just that. I'm very pleased with this initial outcome. In a separate post on X, Trudeau indicated that Canada would move ahead with its $1.3 billion border plan announced in December, weeks after Trump first threatened the 25% duties that were due to take effect. It would have been actually midnight today, 12:01 today. Now, Canadian energy products would have been subjected to a lower 10% rate, and we're going to talk about what this means for China. But that initiative, Trudeau said, includes reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I've also signaled a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. That's according to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Now, the tariffs on China, the 10% tariffs on China, have taken effect at midnight today. Beijing has responded with retaliatory taxes on U.S. imports. New tariffs on China went into effect this morning as part of President Trump's efforts to use trade measures to halt the flow of fentanyl into America. And Beijing retaliated by announcing its own tax on some imports from the U.S. The 10% additional tariff on imported Chinese goods came into force at 12:01 a.m., hours after the leaders of Mexico and Canada were able to negotiate a 30-day pause. Trump declared last week that the fentanyl crisis in America constituted a national emergency and that he would use the authorities under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose additional tariffs on China. The goal is to get Chinese officials to crack down on the flow of the precursor chemicals made or used to make fentanyl. Access to the American market is a privilege, read a statement from the White House, arguing that the import taxes are a powerful, proven source of leverage for protecting the nation's interests. President Trump is using the tools at hand and taking decisive action that puts American safety and our national interest or our national security first. So that's kind of a quick overview of what happened yesterday and early this morning. That deal reached between Canada and Mexico for a 30-day pause as they sent 10,000 troops. I don't know what to say about this. The media will run with it. CNBC already has. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, of course, weighed in on the imposing tariffs, saying that Vladimir Putin warned Europe will quickly, quote, stand at the feet of the master after U.S. President Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. I assure you, Trump, with his character, with his persistence, he will restore order there quite quickly. And all of them, you will see, will happen quickly soon. They will all stand at the feet of the master and will wag their tails a little. Everything will fall into place. That's according to a statement Putin told a pro-Kremlin journalist. So calling Trump master, that people stand at the feet of the master, not really sure how that helps or hurts, but I'm sure something that the media will run with. Those, and again, many in the media who haven't learned their lesson, haven't done the soul searching after November, are pushing this in some way as a embarrassment to Trump, that he, quote unquote, blinked. When really, I don't know how you can say that when you see how much we obtained before the tariffs even needed to go in, the leverage that he spoke about. Stephen Collinson at CNN said, in the face of a trade war with America's neighbors, Trump blinked. Again, this is Stephen Collinson, CNN. There are two things to remember when assessing Donald Trump's presidencies. First, nothing is more important than the commander-in-chief looking tough. Second, nothing is really what it seems. Trump's classic political method is already on full display in his second presidency and helps explain the baffling chaos, brinksmanship, and posturing of his tariff showdown with Canada and Mexico. Punishing 25% levies on imports from America's closest neighbors were due to come into force at 12:01 today, but Trump put his two-front trade wars on hold, claiming he scored two big wins and major concessions. But despite a White House victory lap, there's a more convincing case it was really Trump who backed away from a fight that could have caused severe economic pain. Trump does have some bragging rights. They are forced to admit at CNN. He campaigned on strengthening America's northern and southern borders and demanded Canada and Mexico do more to cut the flow of undocumented migrants and fentanyl. And I'm not going to go through all the specifics. But again, they're presenting it, even though many outlets were saying that it was a win for Trump, that Mexico and Canada buckled. CNN's taking the different tact, again, not really coming as a surprise, but it was Trump who was bullied into submission. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said Canada is bending the knee just like Mexico. This, according to CNN, this was a stunning insult coming from a press aide with no diplomatic responsibilities. It's also suggested deep contempt for Canada, especially in the White House, of a president who demands it become the 51st state. This is another example where they take everything Trump says at face value. When he kept pushing the 51st state idea, there was a lot there to kind of mock Trudeau. It actually ended up costing Trudeau in many ways the prime minister gig. But it also goes to show you how literally they take him, when that was obviously some type of look over here while other things are being done type scenario. There was a fun conversation that we had, but no one, I think, seriously took Trump at the Canada being the 51st state. They understood it for kind of the fun that it was. But a more objective view of the bizarre showdown with America's neighbors suggests a blunter truth. Trump blinked, according to Stephen Collinson at CNN. CNN, again, proving that they have not learned from November, proving yet again they can get rid of Jim Acosta, but it's not going to change the bias and the narrative coming from the newsroom. The president vowed as recently as last week that there was nothing that Canada or Mexico could do to avoid the tariffs he planned to impose, but he pulled back on imposing them anyway. As markets tanked on Monday morning, the potential consequences of a North America trade war were laid bare. The potential for tariffs to spike the grocery prices that Trump was partly elected to fix came into focus. There were fresh warnings that the auto industry, a cross-border concern, could seize up, and with the price of a new vehicle soon could shoot up by $3,000. And Canada and Mexico didn't really give up that much. Well, I'm confused what we gave up to get a stronger border. That's what's confusing to me. And of course, they highlight that the national anthem was booed at that hockey game in Canada. Now they're suggesting that allies no longer like America, according to Stephen Collinson. So just to give you a look at a little bit of the media coverage, we've got a couple other things on this. We could talk about tariffs as long as you want this morning, but I've got a lot of amazing New York updates on a couple of different levels, all the way from Assembly, Congressional, Federal. We're going to be talking about that. A couple things here about the Trump administration in general, the confirmation hearings. Pam Bondi got a good signal of support yesterday. We also are looking at Robert F. Kennedy Jr., where that will lead. I've got some pieces showing both sides, the pros and cons, or what the media is saying are the pros and cons. So we'll talk about that as well. But keep the comments, keep the waves coming in. We're just getting started. Your thoughts on the tariffs. I'd love to hear from you. Stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Your smile to Dr. Hench's at either Watkins Glen, Elmira, Horseheads, or Elkland Family Dentistry. All 4 locations provide cutting-edge technology to make sure your visit is comfortable and stress-free. Dr. Hench's offers treatment in all areas of dentistry, including same-day crowns, implants, root canals, oral surgery, and treatment for all ages. For the best dental care in the region, trust Dr. Hench's and his staff at Watkins Glen, Horseheads, Elmira, and Elkland Family Dentistry. Call any one of his offices today or visit them online for more information.
Isn't it most important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's Hot Tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Every millions fly with us at Allegiant because together we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. One thing I did want to mention, because we talked about the trade wars, I'm going to get to some comments here too. One thing that it should be noted, that yes, China's 10% tariffs, they went into effect this morning at 12:01. But Donald Trump has said that China seems to have a willingness to negotiate, and that he will be speaking with President Xi Jinping within 24 hours. So that's just an update that you may not have heard. We also, got a couple comments here, sorry. Comment from a viewer, wow, 10,000 troops. Trump proves that tariffs work. Rehabbing America and the world. The contrast to the old administration will be amazing. Now, Trump's Canada tariff tiffs tells America's friends to get real on defense spending. This is coming from Daniel McCarthy. We're showing you all sides of the coin. We had Stephen Collinson from CNN suggesting that this was Trump that blinked. Daniel McCarthy says Trump knows exactly what he's doing with tariffs. Everyone else is baffled. Why did the president announce heavy taxes on imports from Canada as well as Mexico and China? America has an obvious interest in economically decoupling from China, a great power rival. And by first imposing, then suspending tariffs on Mexican imports, Trump was able to bring Mexico's government to the negotiating table on his terms. That's one immediate result in the fight against illegal immigration and the trafficking of fentanyl and other drugs into our country. And I gave you the specifics of that. But the president's strategy can even help bring jobs and supply chains back to America without the tariffs having to go into effect. U.S. businesses, terrified by the prospect of tariffs, have an incentive to get ahead of them by moving production back into the United States and devoting greater attention to the home market. And American companies, depending on foreign imports, have every reason to start breaking free of their dependence right now by finding substitute components that won't be subjected to tariffs. Trump knows how to win trade wars before the first shot, so to speak, is fired. That's Daniel McCarthy. Now, on the other side of the coin, on NBC's Meet the Press Now, the Monday edition, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear stated that even if President Donald Trump's tariff threats are just a negotiating tactic, quote, it's a tactic that threatens the livelihood of so many different Americans, and he threatens to harm or devastate or crater a great economy where people are finally starting to do better and feel better. Do you believe that you're feeling better, doing better? Now, I know the Democrats have been trying to go after Trump, saying, well, where are the price changes? After 2 weeks, 3 weeks, which is just so hypocritical compared to what we heard from the last 4 years of you not only being lectured when you said you couldn't afford your groceries, being laughed at and mocked and ridiculed as well because the economy is doing great. Still pushing that narrative. That's the word I'm looking for. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear saying that the tariffs threaten to harm or devastate or crater a great economy where people are finally starting to do better and feel better. The full answer to the question was, well, it is a negotiating tactic. It's a tactic that threatens the livelihoods of so many different Americans. People will lose their jobs if these tariffs go into effect. He threatens to harm or devastate or crater a great economy where people are finally starting to do better and feel better. This is Donald Trump potentially writing a legacy where he took an economy that was really starting to work, and because he wanted to be strong and powerful and negotiate some great deal, caused harm to the American people. So this is a way to blame Donald Trump for Biden's disastrous economy. Just another example of rewriting history before preemptively rewriting history. The Post editorial board, and I'm just giving you a couple different looks at this that maybe you've witnessed so far. As Donald Trump's tariffs play against Mexico and Canada continues to unfold, it's important that the president to remember his own most famous concept, quote, the art of the deal. That is, he needs to have some clear strategic end state in view and some specific demands foreign leaders will realistically meet given the pressure he's applying. Well, we're seeing some of that. I mean, if you look at 10,000 troops as nothing to sneeze at, and some of the protections specifically Canada was putting in, I mean, I understand their point to not just throw this around. But they continue by saying failure would include higher prices for already suffering Americans and punishment for Trump in the polls. So for his own sake and the nation's, the president mustn't lose sight of the big deal, the big picture, no matter how satisfying it may be to slam leaders who harm our interests. So your thoughts overall on the troops, well, that's part of the deal. On the tariffs, tongue twisted this morning. On the tariffs, we're not going to focus the whole morning on the tariffs, but I think it's worth kind of giving you the quick update. Again, a deal being reached for a 30-day pause with both Canada and Mexico. Now, the Chinese tariffs went into effect early this morning, 12:01 a.m. That's a 10% tariff, but as I had mentioned earlier, Donald Trump has agreed to have a conversation with, I should say, China about the tariffs within 24 hours. So we'll see what kind of path that leads down. But there's some other great news coming out of the administration. I don't want to get through all of our news early this morning, but I do have a lot of New York updates that I think you're really going to want to hear. But El Salvador, according to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, has offered to jail dangerous U.S. citizens and accept criminal illegal migrants from any country. This going back to the tactic of tariffs and being straight and tough talking with not just our allies, but adversaries, so that they know where we stand as a country, has led to some pretty remarkable things quickly in this administration, this being one of them. The president of El Salvador on Monday offered to house convicted U.S. citizens in his country's mega prison and take in deported criminal illegal migrants of any nationality after he had the meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Rubio said the deal struck with Salvadorian President Bukele represents the most unprecedented, extraordinary migratory agreement anywhere in the world. We can send them, and he will put them in the jails, the Secretary of State said. And he also offered to do the same for dangerous criminals currently in custody and serving their sentences in the U.S., even though they're U.S. citizens or legal residents. Bukele, the president of El Salvador, indicated that he will charge the U.S. a relatively low fee if it decides to use his nation's notorious 40,000 person capacity maximum security prison. We have offered the United States of America the opportunity to outsource part of its prison system. We're willing to take in only convicted criminals, including convicted U.S. citizens, into our mega prison in exchange for a fee. The fee would be relatively low for the U.S., but significant for us, making our entire prison system sustainable. So that is a very interesting conversation, must be, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the El Salvador president. We also see that Pete Hegseth, in his first visit as Secretary of Defense to the U.S.-Mexico border, he made that trip yesterday. We'll talk about that. I am running late, and I see some comments coming in. Let me take another break, and then we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Frankly Speaking, Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
Want to know why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning is now offering residential plumbing services. A local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. You can trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hey, Southern Tier, Florida's calling. traveling, and we've got some exciting news. Allegiant Air is expanding its schedule. We are now offering a new service to Sarasota, a flight to Sanford, Orlando, Tampa St. Pete, and Punta Gorda, a Myra Corning Regional Airport, the premier airport of the Southern Tier.
The Big Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back. As you can tell, it's a little bit nasty out there, so please be careful on your way into school or your way into work. Also, one question I haven't posed yet, and it is only Tuesday, but as we're very excited here on Fox to have the Super Bowl this year, I'd love to hear your predictions as we near. Maybe I'll take a tally. And we'll see on Friday where we stand and see how we did on Monday. How's that? So if you have any predictions. All right, some comments from viewers. Canada and Mexico played right into Trump's hands. He got some of what he wanted, and the 30-day delay is to get the rest of what he wants. Thank you very much. And it's sent a pretty strong signal throughout the world. Comment from a different viewer. China has placed a 15% tariff on metals and minerals that are vital to our military needs. Why are we dependent on China for any of our military needs? And in general, I mean, if you look at the supply chain, I mean, I think there was a clear message when we were having so much difficulties with the supply chain that we needed to become less dependent on China. There was quite a rallying cry at that time. I'm not sure. I don't think we've made a lot of changes in that direction, but there's a real fear that China could at some point weaponize the supply chain and stop certain goods from coming over here, not just for our military, as you mentioned there, but just for the general well-being when you talk about medical supplies. And look at what happened during COVID specifically, some of the things that we were getting, like masks and gloves and the things that we wore at the very beginning, and some still do, from China, where many people believe that COVID was originated from a lab. But I wanted to talk about Pete Hegseth, and I saw some other comments on different topics. I'm not avoiding those to the people that comment. Just in the order of the show today, I'm going to include them as we talk about New York, which we're going to be talking about soon. But Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth visited troops at the border in El Paso, Texas, where he pledged the Pentagon's full support to Border Patrol and gaining, quote, operational control of the U.S.-Mexico frontier. Hegseth told reporters that the thousands of additional troops deployed to the region are there to help free up overwhelmed border agents who are there to repel a, quote, invasion. He said that under the Biden administration, agents were babysitting and releasing migrants who are crossing illegally. Roughly 8 million migrants illegally entered the U.S. during the Democrats' 4-year term, and I think that number is much higher, but that is the estimate. President Trump has wasted no time ordering the military to fortify the border since taking power, declaring a national emergency over illegal crossing. He's also threatened, for lack of a better word, to use Guantanamo Bay to detain hardened criminals, including TDA gangbangers, before they're deported. We will defend this line, Hegseth said while visiting troops at the southern border. Border security is national security. Guys and gals of my generation have spent decades in foreign countries, guarding other people's borders. It's about time we secure our own border. Tens of millions of people have poured across this border under Joe Biden's administration unchecked. We have no idea who they are. We have no idea where they're coming from. We have no idea what their intentions are. In many ways, under the Biden administration, they were facilitated with their entry into the country. That stops now under the President and the Defense Department. And the Defense Department is proud to be a part of it. We have defended other places and other spaces. We will defend this line. He was accompanied on his trip by none other than border czar Tom Homan. So there is an update on just a lot going on in the Trump administration. Your thoughts on the tariffs? People seem pretty happy with the way it's played out so far. To that one viewer's point, that it'll be maybe this 30-day pause will give each side time to negotiate a better deal, specifically for the United States, but a good deal nonetheless right off the jump. Before we go to, because I got to take a break, but before we go to New York State issues, yeah, why not? I'll jump into this. Since we've been talking about Joe Biden's border and talking about the failed policies that led to this inflation, former President Joe Biden has made his first known move to monetize his post-presidency. He announced yesterday that he will be represented by a creative artists agency for as yet unknown services. The talent agency comes after the deal comes after insiders speculated on how Biden and his family might make money after reaping millions from foreign patrons and a dubious Ivy League professorship during and after his vice presidency. Quote, President Biden is one of America's most respected and influential voices in national and global affairs, said Creative Artist Agency's co-chairman, Richard Lovett. His lifelong commitment to public service is one of unity, optimism, dignity, and possibility. We are profoundly honored to partner with him again. Now, CAA, as it's referred to, also reps Barack and Michelle Obama's Higher Ground Media Company, which has produced nearly 24 films and TV shows, including the Oscar-winning documentary American Factory and podcasts featuring the former first couple. Biden's precise plans remain unclear, though he used the same agency to rep him after he left the vice presidency to promote his 2017 book, Promise Me, Dad. Now, it didn't mention a book being in the works in this situation, meaning it's possible that Biden simply intends to use entertainment audiences, a common and lucrative practice for former politicians. But, giving those speeches, speaking at conferences. Biden, as president, earned an annual salary of $400,000, but he and relatives invoking his name commanded much more after his vice presidency. We know all about that. We don't need to get into that. We've talked about it extensively on this program. But just wanted to give you an update on what the future holds for former President Joe Biden. Your thoughts on that? Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about some New York State issues. Again, it doesn't mean we have to give up on talking about the tariffs. If you have more that you want to add to the conversation, and if you are just waking up, just tuning in, well, good morning. But also, the 30-day pause is now in effect with Canada, too. That came a little bit later yesterday than the Mexico pause did. 10,000 troops on the border. A lot of great deals, I think, for America from both Canada and Mexico. But the Chinese 10% tariffs went in this morning at 12:01. So that is your kind of quick Cliff Note edition of what happened yesterday. So we've got a couple of New York State issues when it comes to electric mandates. Also, we're going to hear an initiative that Congressman Langworthy and Congresswoman Tenney are urging the governor on, and also just a couple of, well, maybe stories that weren't on your radar but are very, very important. So please stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
When you think Hesselson's. Hesselson's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel toe boots, Met Guard boots, soft toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots all in one location. Hesselson's, Elmira Heights. Hesselson's has men's and ladies boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry. Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keene Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselson's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselson's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
This was our last chance to show who our son was. I can't say enough about pre-planning. When you are in those moments, you are not thinking clearly.
We showed up for the remembrance, and we walked in, and we just, wow.
It was arranged perfectly. Yeah. I certainly could not have done that in that moment. So to have those pre-conversations, it's really important.
Visit carpentersphillipsflint.com to learn more about our family-owned funeral homes.
32 teams started a journey. 2 are left standing.
Both teams look unstoppable right now.
GMFB Overtime has everything you need to know to get game ready for Super Bowl.
This is what it's all about.
With in-depth on-site pregame coverage.
This is everything.
And Monday, don't miss our extensive post-Super Bowl 59 show from New Orleans.
Will there be beignets?
Your road to Super Bowl 59 starts here on GMFB Overtime.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back. One other thing that I wanted to mention, and we're not going to get away from talking about Trump by any means, but I want to go on to New York State issues. But I did want to mention, because this happened yesterday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was appointed the acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau after President Trump fired the head of the financial watchdog agency created in the wake of the 2008 crisis. Bessent got right to work implementing the latest signature Trump administration pause, telling the agency's staff to stop all work on enforcement, litigation, and new rules pending a review. Okay. Moving along here to New York State issues. Congressman Nick Langworthy, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and Congresswoman Claudia Tenney urged the Department of Defense to open the Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station to support ICE deportation operations. They sent a letter to newly confirmed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth requesting the Department of Defense consider opening the Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station to support immigration and customs enforcement operations with additional bed space for detainees and as a point of departure for deportation flights. The letter states, in part, the Northeast U.S. currently has only one ICE-operated service processing center located in Batavia, New York. This facility, though critical, cannot solely handle the growing demand for detention and deportation processing. With an estimated 759,218 illegal immigrants residing in New York City alone, including 58,000 individuals who are either convicted felons or facing criminal charges, the need for additional detention capacity is clear. Local facilities are overwhelmed, and it is imperative that we have the resources necessary to address the serious public safety concern. The Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station's role in supporting our national defense can be enhanced by partnering with ICE in this effort to ensure the swift and secure removal of high-priority illegal immigrants from the United States. Utilizing this federal resource would help ease the burden on local law enforcement and detention centers while advancing President Trump's agenda of maintaining public safety through efficient and effective deportation. Congressman Langworthy said about the letter, one of my top priorities when I got home from Washington was to set up an in-person briefing with the Buffalo ICE office to hear directly from them about how the operations have ramped up under President Trump's executive actions to deport criminal illegals. In this meeting, I learned the ICE processing center in Batavia is nearly at capacity. And with a massive illegal population accused and convicted of crimes in New York, opening the Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station to support their efforts will help ensure they can continue to swiftly execute the president's orders. As the Department of Defense is already aiding the Department of Homeland Security in its border security measures, it makes perfect sense to ask Secretary Hegseth to consider this request. Thanks to President Trump's leadership, the entire federal government is working together to make our country safer. Thank you, Congressman Nick Langworthy. Boy, we're covering a lot this morning, aren't we? We've already discussed the tariffs, but we can go back to the tariffs. Also talking about immigration. There's a couple other As a side note, before we talk more about New York, because there's a lot to cover there, did you see, because it ties in with immigration, did you see New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy? He was very cocky at an event where he basically admitted that he was housing an illegal immigrant and then told the feds to try to get her. Well, that may sound tough, but now Phil Murphy's office is trying to backpedal after he boasted that he had opened his home to a migrant and taunted the Trump administration to try to get her. A rep told the Post that the loose-lipped Jersey leader had been misinterpreted and that no such situation had occurred, even though Murphy had dared the feds to come after the migrant. Murphy had boasted during a weekend interview with a liberal organization. That's what it was. I was thinking it was at a liberal gathering, but yes, it was with a liberal, I believe, media organization, that he and his wife Tammy had opened their homes to a female migrant and challenged the feds to do anything about it, as ICE agents continue to carry out sweeping deportation raids across the country. He said on Sunday, "I don't want to get into too much detail, but there's someone in our broader universe whose immigration status is not yet at the point they're trying to get it to. And we said, you know what? Let's have her live at our house above our garage. And good luck to the feds coming to try to get her." Now furiously walking back those comments because it created quite a firestorm. Murphy was just referring to a legal resident who was in his circle of friends and was worried about President Trump's return to the White House. The governor's rep then first said, "No one's ever lived in the home under those circumstances that the governor described," according to his representative. The representative did not explain why Murphy, who lives with his family in a mansion in Middletown, New Jersey, would dare the Trump administration to go after the woman at his home if she wasn't there, if there was no such woman. It created quite a kerfuffle online. Murphy, an ex-U.S. ambassador to Germany under former President Barack Obama, appeared to compare Trump's administration to the rise of Nazism as well in the European country nearly a century ago, when warning audience members to gear up for the next 4 years. The Germans in the 20s and 30s got tired. They got sick of fighting. And look at the price we paid. We cannot roll over. We cannot stop fighting. We need an intensity. He then complained about low voter turnout for Democrats against this guy in reference to Trump. I mean, my goodness. It's not like we're wondering what he's going to be like. We know what he's like. And we can't let that happen again, ever, ever, ever. So he was tough talking, very tough talking on Sunday amongst like-minded people. That quickly changed after people started calling him on it, trying to, if you're going to go to Trump into finding this person in your home where you just admitted exactly where they were, over your garage, you may have bit off a little bit more than you could chew, because think of the, if nothing else, the optics that Trump would look forward to in that scenario, going against Democrat New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy. Now, all his staff walking that back. We actually do have, how am I doing on time? Well, this ties in with ignoring Trump orders. We've got a lot of New York, but specifically New York's Attorney General Letitia James. She warned local hospitals Monday that they will be in violation of state discrimination laws if they comply with President Trump's executive order aimed at outlawing sex change procedures for minors. James wrote in a letter to New York healthcare facilities, "Regardless of the availability of federal funding, we write to further remind you of your obligations to comply with New York state laws, including those that prohibit discrimination against individuals based on their membership in a protected class, such as a sex, gender, identity, or expression, sexual orientation, race, creed, color, national origin, citizenship or immigration status, military status, disability, or marital status." Now that is very much coming from Prop 1. Electing to refuse services to a class of individuals based on their protective status, such as withholding the availability of services from transgender individuals based on their gender identity or their diagnosis of gender dysphoria, while offering such services to cisgender individuals, is discrimination under New York law. She urged anyone witnessing potential violations to contact her office. Her letter comes as several hospitals across the country have already taken steps to cut back on so-called gender-affirming care in an apparent effort to comply with Trump's January 28th executive order, quote, protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. Now, the order threatens to withhold federal funding from hospitals that provide sex change treatment, like puberty blockers and hormone therapy, to youths under the age of 19. So this is the direction that Letitia James, and that should come as no surprise, Hochul and Letitia James giving that press conference right after Trump was elected, trying to basically signal that they're not going to listen to the presidential administration of Donald Trump. So Letitia James just reiterating that point. And thank you to so many people who brought that to my attention this morning. All right. When we come back, maybe a little bit here about electric school bus mandates. Yes, we are covering a lot on this morning's edition of Frankly Speaking, so stay with us. We will be right back after this.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription.
Touchdown!
Grab your Fox Sports app today.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my number one goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and I thank you so much for joining us. One thing I wanted to mention, and this is coming from the Wall Street Journal, take it with a grain of salt, but they are reporting that the Trump administration is mulling executive orders that would shut down large parts of the Department of Education. Again, not a lot known as of right now. And again, some of these leaks that we saw back in the first term of President Trump, not always proven to be accurate. So just take it with a grain of salt. Okay, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, and I can't get to all of it, but I know we talked so extensively about it. Phil was on Friday. We talked about the electric school bus mandate. He released an op-ed yesterday saying the electric school bus mandate is the mother of all unfunded mandates. Governor Hochul and the Assembly and Senate Democrat majorities have forced upon local school districts a politically driven and costly mandate that has not proven to be reliable, feasible, or safe, especially for our more rural school districts in upstate. This mandate was passed without any cost, feasibility, or safety analysis. Simply put, our local school district and property taxpayers cannot afford to buy these unreliable buses. The fact is, the cost of this mandate on local school districts across the state is between $8 billion and $15.25 billion. Vehicle purchases, charging, and facility infrastructure, and in many instances, costly electric grid improvements will be required. I've heard from many local school superintendents who have expressed their strong concern with this mandate. We need to pump the brakes on the electric school bus mandate now. If we do not reform this now by letting individual districts opt out of the current mandate until we have more information, the benefit of experience and more efficient and less expensive technology, we are putting our schools, students, and their families at serious risk, and we'll be breaking the backs of local property taxpayers across the state at the worst possible time. This is quite a lengthy piece. But I thought there was a couple things worth highlighting and kind of echoing what he said on Friday, but with some addition. If a school district wants to purchase electric school buses, they have the option to purchase an electric school bus. What is fair? How about giving local school districts the option to opt out of the costly mandate? What is fair? How about requiring the state of New York to show this can be done and force them to lead, and for the state to be required to convert its entire fleet before school districts are required to purchase one school bus and convert their fleets? What is fair? Before moving forward with this unproven and costly technology, require the state to conduct a cost, feasibility, and safety analysis, to require all electric school buses to be made from the parts made in USA instead of using parts made from minerals like cobalt that have been extracted using child labor in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Pump, no, slam the brakes on the electric school bus mandate for the state of New York and make the state of New York do it first. Okay, we've got a couple other New York updates. We've got to wrap up, take our last break of this hour. They are in Albany trying to change the rules so that really President Trump has less of a mandate in Congress. Well, how are they doing that? They want to delay a special election for Elise Stefanik's seat. And it's all being done for no other reason than political reasons, to not allow a stronger mandate for the president in Congress. We're also going to talk a little bit about the hearings. If you want to go back and talk about the tariffs, again, the tariffs got rectified yesterday between Mexico and Canada. There's a 30-day pause. So as of this morning, those two tariffs are off the table, not off the table, but not in effect. But the China tariff, the 10% China tariff, is on the table. It's actually enacted at 12:01 this morning, though President Trump has said that he will talk with China within 24 hours. So we'll see what direction those negotiations head down as well. Got a lot of other things we can cover. Your thoughts on Pete Hegseth's trip to the border. Your thoughts about, I forgot to read a comment. Yeah, we had a comment from a viewer. We had talked earlier about how Joe Biden signed with an agency. Now it could lead to a couple different things. You could lead to Hollywood. It could be a book signing. It could just be to give some speeches, which seems like right now, after some of the speeches we saw, maybe not the best idea. One viewer said, sounds like Biden is low on money. Well, I hope he likes the economy and prices he created. Last I knew, Trump doesn't even take a paycheck from his presidency. I know he didn't the first term. It's kind of a technicality, but he legally had to take the check, but then he would donate it to a cause, whatever the cause he chose at that point. So I'm sure he's doing that again this go around. It's not something the media really likes to focus on because it's a positive for Trump. So maybe that's why we haven't heard more. I see some other comments coming in, and I see that I ran out on a tangent, so I'm not taking a break early. We're taking a break right on time, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Today's top story, increasing fuel costs continue to drive up inflation, making it harder to afford everything from food to home heating.
Here at Hustlesons, we know the only way to beat inflation is to fight inflation. So we're fighting back with zero interest financing and big cash rebates. Get a 4-person hot tub for your family for as little as $100 per month and pay zero interest. Or save up to $3,000 on a fabulous salt system hot tub. And of course, you will always get Hustlesons' unbelievable service. Don't let inflation fears kill your dreams. Fight back with Hustlesons. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesons.
Your water is delicious. I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system. What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We are covering a lot this morning. Let's go to some viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Hey, good morning. The city of Arlington, Virginia has transit buses that are powered by clean natural gas, that are clean and quiet. That is what New York needs. A very good option. This is all about really virtue signaling to be the one that said they did this, but to the hypocrisy that Assemblyman Palmisano points out, and that the New York State vehicle fleets don't have to be converted till much later than the school buses, shows you all you need to know, using the schools as a guinea pig. But remember, we vote on the budget, so that's what's going to be interesting. The Assemblyman signaled his fear, just like I have the same fear, that Hochul will change something that is no longer up for voters, yes or no, thumbs up or thumbs down, that the school buses will no longer be up for a vote. And that's very troubling when you'll start to see your taxes. Let me tell you. Comment from Ken. Hey, Ken. Did you see that the legacy media has said that ICE has started to release captured illegal immigrants back into the country? NBC approached Tom Homan during an interview at the border that included Pete Hegseth and asked him about the release, trying to catch him in a gotcha moment. Tom responded by saying that was news to him and he would check it out. It will be interesting to see if this was something NBC made up or if there's any truth to it. Thank you, Ken. I saw the article you're referring to, I think Drudge Report, which used to be a mainstay for most conservative talk show hosts and Fox News and places like that. They have become very anti-Trump. So you get to see a good look at some of those articles like you were just talking about with NBC. I'm going to be very interested to find out what that is. It could be just a one-and-done story where not a lot has come out. But, this goes back with Trump's, as the mainstream media puts it, war on the media. But taking them to task. And if you look, I have an update on it, that 60 Minutes video. We said on this program, very clear, that if Trump doesn't win, nothing will ever be done with the 60 Minutes transcript. They know that they just have to get through the election, and nothing will be called into question about their alleged selective editing of Vice President Harris, at the time candidate Harris. So if Trump didn't win, they would have went about their merry way. But now Trump is saying, we demand, well, the FCC specifically, we demand that transcript. We're going to give you an update on that. Also, I would love to hear your thoughts as we wrap up hour number one. I'm not going to start a new topic. As we wrap up hour number one, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how tariffs all got figured out. So you've got a 30-day pause on Canada and Mexico, getting some really good deals there for the United States when it comes to border security. The China tariffs, 10%, began at 12:01 tonight. Okay, or this morning, I should say. One quick reminder, because I have just a second, if you would humor me. Our good friends at the Rotary Club are hosting their Groundhog Day pancake supper today. So if you haven't made dinner plans already, this is a perfect opportunity to not only help out a good cause, but as you can see, get a great meal for a great price. It is today from 4:30 till 7 at the Corning Penny Post High School Cafe. Look at that, just a big stack, $10. 4 pancakes, potato tots, turkey, sausage, and beverages. Wow, that's a lot of food. Short stack 7 is 2 pancakes. Well, you see it all there. Dine-in or takeaway options are available. I love this part to it. Live music by Punxsutawney Phil and The Repeats. What a good name for a band. All right, so that is today. Help out our good friends at the Corning Rotary. We need to take a short break and get to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
At John G. Ullman & Associates, our clients come first. As a fiduciary, we build personalized plans rooted in our shared ethics and values.
And you've been doing this for 45 years?
Yes, our in-house team creates custom plans built for you and your family.
We like the idea of a relationship that lasts.
That's what we're all about, helping you and your family build and protect wealth for generations. John G. Ullman & Associates, here for everything your money touches.
Why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning is now offering residential plumbing services. A local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. You can trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
13 started a journey. 2 are left standing.
Both teams look unstoppable right now.
GMFB Overtime has everything you need to know to get game ready for Super Bowl.
This is what it's all about.
With in-depth on-site pregame coverage.
This is everything.
And Monday, don't miss our extensive post-Super Bowl 59 show from New Orleans.
Will there be beignets?
Your
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. We've covered a lot this morning, I've got to say. So if you're just joining us, you missed a lot. I will pose this question. We'll pose it throughout the week because we're so proud and happy to have the Super Bowl on right here on Fox. What are your predictions? Do you have any thoughts? All right, comment from a viewer. Good thing Canada relented, because Google was set to change Hudson Bay to Bay of America. We're going to have a couple, Gulf of America, Bay of America. We're going to get confused. It's going to be a whole, we're going to take geography again. Thank you very much for that comment. So back to New York State issues for a moment. We are going to talk about the confirmation process, some other things about the Trump administration. And I know I mentioned this almost every day since Trump was sworn back in, but I had generally forgot how the news cycle worked with the Trump administration, meaning that not only are there numerous major stories, one of these would have been a huge story for Biden in a week, let alone every day. Not only are there major stories, but it's all weekend long as well. This is not a complaint at all. It's just if there's something that we glaringly omitted, or you're saying, why hasn't he brought this up? Please bring it to my attention. It's not done specifically, but what happens at 9 a.m., I should say 8 a.m. right after this program is over. And by the time I go back on the next day, so many stories have unfolded that some of the earlier morning ones are no longer as relevant and almost played out. So it's a really unique and exciting news cycle. Don't get me wrong. So if there's anything I missed, feel free. This is one that I think, oh, you know what? Yeah, I wanted to mention this because we talked about Assemblyman Phil Palmisano with the EV. This is interesting as well. New York residents are rebelling against battery storage plants for wind, solar power, and as this whole going green idea goes south, because it's playing with fire, which is kind of neat. You know, I joke that some at the national level, or at least the New York Post, watched this program to get some of their ideas. I joke about that. And then we saw a clip of the show on Seth Meyers' late night show, and we thought, uh-oh, maybe they are watching. Well, this is exactly what Assemblyman Phil Palmisano said on Friday's show, and now being featured late yesterday at the New York Post. But Governor Hochul's plan for the Empire State to go green are going south as local communities refuse to build massive battery plants that would store wind and solar energy. And Assemblyman Palmisano even said on the show that townships should look at this and be preemptive and vote in essentially a ban already before it becomes an issue. One upstate town where a top state official leading the state's anti-fossil fuel push just voted to ban construction of the plants, and one New York City politician has already called to pause any new sites for the facilities. They are being placed literally right next door to people's homes and even next to gas stations. The city is playing with fire by allowing this type of reckless policy to continue. Duanesburg, where New York State Energy Research and Development President and CEO Doreen Harris lives, recently voted to ban BES buildings because they will pose a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare of residents of the town and their property. Duanesburg officials said they decided on the ban, first reported by the Daily Gazette, because the town relies on volunteer firefighters and that part of the town lacks access to public water. Critics have said they are not only a fire hazard, but could spark a blaze that takes longer to extinguish and would spew toxins into the air. So this is an update that Phil gave us on Friday. Reach out. And I know we've got a lot of people in elected office to watch this program, encouraging you, if you are on a town board or city council, something like that, being preemptive on this and not allowing these storage plants, these battery storage plants in your communities because of the hazard for your communities. So that was just kind of an update, but also to pat ourselves on the back that we were ahead of the game, as usual, here on Frankly Speaking. Also this is one of the stories that I missed. At first, it threw me for a loop, and then I understood what we were seeing here. Several Democrat lawmakers said they had paused introducing a bill to change the state's mandated timeline to set a special election and continue to work on the proposal amid mounting pushback. So to give you an idea, what they were trying to do is manipulate the system so that they would not have to put someone in a Elise Stefanik's seat or have a special election for Elise Stefanik's seat right away, so that then Trump would have an even slimmer majority in the House. It was purely politics. As a matter of fact, the story's a little old now, but Mike Lawler was actually calling for a RICO probe on this. GOP Representative Mike Lawler, many believe he is at least contemplating a run for New York governor, vowed yesterday to request a federal racketeering probe against New York over Albany Democrats' plot to keep an Empire State congressional seat open, which would hobble the Republican majority. Lawler joined a growing chorus of high-profile Republicans who condemned Democrats for considering changing state election laws to keep the deep red upstate District 21 seat held by Elise Stefanik open well after her expected resignation. We've seen the governor play with some of these times in the past, or attempt to delay, especially when it's a Republican. I'm going to request that the Department of Justice open up a RICO investigation into New York State, because this is as corrupt a state as we have seen. And it was actually Hakeem Jeffries that was really pushing for this. He has been very vocal on this. New York Republican leaders say they'll sue if Democrats change state election law, which would delay the expected 21st district race to this summer and leave New Yorkers in the district without a representative for months. Conservative Party Chair Jerry Kaiser said anything that involves Congress could very likely end up in federal court. So let's just keep that clear. And we're willing to litigate no matter what. But threats are hypothetical until the proposal becomes law or Stefanik's official departure creates a vacancy. Governor Hochul said she'll consider the legislative proposal to allow more time to set a special election in the state, arguing consolidating special races with regular primaries would save localities money and increase voter turnout. And those are the two talking points whenever they want to push something through that may not be in the voters' best interest, or in this case, the residents' best interest. I'll tell you what a very short time frame does. It favors people who are already elected officials versus a citizen who wants to run, because there's a lot involved in this. So you're actually denying more opportunities for people to run who don't already hold elected office. You can count on one thing, is that Republicans will scream loudly if there's ever an effort to bring voters more access, or voter access to more people. They just don't like it. So see, that's some actually good political spin from Governor Hochul, suggesting that if Republicans fight back against this, and you can see why they would, that it's actually them trying to suppress voters. This is kind of a knee-jerk reaction from many in the Democrat Party. She's normally really late to the game on talking points like that. So interesting that she's come up with this kind of trite argument about why everybody knows they are delaying the vote for special election for Elise Stefanik's seat. Again, as Mike Lawler said, this is as corrupt a state as we have seen. Every election law change they have made is not designed to support the people. It's not designed to increase voter participation. It is designed entirely to silence the voice of the minority, period. Assemblyman Chris Tague is a top contender if there is a special election, said Republicans, Democrats, independent voters, people all across the state that have said enough is enough. They don't care about the political party. They want leaders that lead. They want people that are going to do things, and they want people that care about their best interests. So again, Mike Lawler saying that he is going to call for a RICO probe into the New York Democrats because of this. Working behind the scenes to kind of stifle votes to make it so you don't, if you were in the 21st district, wouldn't have a representative. Now the rage, not only is he upset, Mike Johnson is very upset as well, saying where is it? Is this it? He had a quote here, and I thought I had it marked. It's time for New Yorkers to fight back, to push back against the insanity, and no matter how much the Democrats try to corrupt the system, no matter how much these folks who tell us that they want to protect and preserve democracy, in fact, want to undermine it at every turn so they can keep power. That is a quote from Speaker Mike Johnson. Albany Democrats met last week to mull changing the state's election law to delay special elections, including potential pending races such as Stefanik's until the June primaries. Now, again, this is one-party rule in Albany, so if they decide in this closed-door meeting, the smoke-filled room, as they used to be called, then indeed they will get their way. So keep that in mind. Now, we know that Stefanik is likely to become the UN ambassador in days. So that means that the constituents of the 21st Congressional District would be going from essentially February till June without any representation in what we know is a majority for the Republicans, but a slim majority House. So again, changing the election laws, no surprise. But Johnson seethed. Speaker Johnson also said instead of working to address high costs, taxes, or fees, the illegal immigration crisis, crime, anti-Semitism on college campuses, or other priorities, New York Democrats are instead working feverishly to silence the voices and needs of more than 750,000 citizens in New York's 21st Congressional District. In an open display of political corruption, they are aiming to change the election rules to add a long delay in filling New York's 21st seat. Governor Hochul and other top Democrats are willing accomplices in this delay scheme because they know the seat will be filled by another Republican. We will continue to hold these politicians accountable and challenge their corrupt plans so that hardworking families across upstate New York and North Country get the representation they deserve. The House Republicans can deliver on our America First agenda. So there is an update on something that may have not been on your radar, but a very important overall picture when we talk about the majority in the House, which is razor thin. People have said it over and over again. I'm not the first one to say it. Razor thin, and they're trying to delay the special election, Stefanik's seat, so that they can continue, they hope for in that first 100 days, not have the victories for Trump that are expected. But Hakeem Jeffries is working hard with New York Democrats to weaken the GOP control of the House as well, working behind the scenes here. That's why perhaps Speaker Johnson was so upset. Now, a spokesperson for Mr. Jeffries did not address the leader's involvement or political motivations when asked for comment. She wrote in a statement, Mr. Jeffries supports any good government initiative and legislative effort designed to expand the number of people who participate in a congressional special election. How does this about anything but participation in a congressional election? It makes or a special election. So there you are. That was one that I don't think was on the radar. We do have a couple other New York State issues, but not too much. If you want to go back to talking about tariffs, we can. We have a couple media updates. We have a couple just general topics when it comes to Trump and the Trump administration, which I know you're thinking, how many more things can he be doing in a single news period, single 24-hour day? But I know it's a lot, and it's only growing. So keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
In those 18 months, Bath Planet has given away 3 dream bathroom makeovers, and now it's your turn. It's our absolute pleasure to announce Dream Bathroom Giveaway 4. On March 3rd, one local family is going to get a dream bathroom makeover for free. Whether you want a tub to lounge or a walk-in shower for accessibility, Bath Planet is excited to give away our 4th free bathroom makeover. Enter now by scanning the QR code or stopping by either of our 2 locations.
Bet on
all the sports, all the players, all the action, all the time. Now you've just got to ask yourself, should I? Take a pause to stay in control and think about how much time you spend betting. A pause can help you if you're watching your wagers more than the game. Pausing can get you back to enjoying time with those around you. Visit oasas.ny.gov and take our survey to see if your wagering is something to worry about. Take a pause and get back into the game.
Hard to explain what this feels like. We could try to put it into words, but nothing compares to experiencing it for yourself. You just have to get in the seat.
Your area John Deere dealer is Lindsay Equipment.
The Sports app isn't just any sports app. Touchdown! Your teams, your highlights, your scores. Get more of what you want. To the end zone! Stream your teams live. It's free with your pay TV subscription.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I agree with Phil on the school buses. My thoughts on why doing school buses first, if they don't work out, someone or another district or city could buy them. State trucks have added features to operate the hydraulic systems, which would take more power. No one would want something like this if it fails. Thank you for what you do. Well, thank you for saying that. It's very kind of you. Yeah, the problem is it just looks so hypocritical that they're making the schools kind of the guinea pigs at taxpayers' expense to see how this system is going to roll out. And they actually have, at the state level, an opt-out option. If it's not going as planned. School buses and school districts do not have that same opt-out mechanism. So that's one of the reasons the hypocrisy is on full display. By the way, in New York, one last thing on New York, President Trump's favorability rating in deep blue New York hit a record high, according to a new poll. Trump's approval rating in the Empire State climbed to 41% in the latest Siena College poll that was released Monday. Even when you figure all the negative coverage they've been trying to give, as others have said about ICE and illegal immigration. The last time the Republican president recorded a favorability rating that high in his mainly Democratic home state was the month before he took office for the first time back in December of 2016. Now, you might say, Frank, why even bother mentioning this? 41%, that's still with an unfavorability rating of 56. It's about the inroads. It's the same with when you look at the vote in November of how many people in New York State voted for Donald Trump. No, he didn't win the state, but you've got to take those victories where you can get them and make those inroads where you can get them if we ever want to see change. It also signals that something big could happen in 2026 with the gubernatorial race if so many Republicans have made headway here. And if you look at the disastrous polling number of Governor Hochul, that it could be the perfect storm. Trump's approval rating in New York has been buoyed by his tough on immigration stance, with a whopping 79% of voters in the Siena survey supporting his effort to deport illegal migrants living in the U.S. who have been convicted of a crime. A majority also believe Trump will do an excellent or good job securing the country's border. That number, 54%. President Trump has not been popular in his former home state for more than a decade. And while this is still true, Trump now has his best favorability rating, 41 to 56%, since the month before he took office the first time, when he was at 41, 53%. The results come as heavily armed federal immigration agents stormed through the Big Apple last Tuesday, targeting migrants with warrants for murder, kidnapping, and other heinous crimes. We talked about it last week, but just something I thought, a little takeaway this morning. The president slowly chipping away. Now, what are, we've talked about Democrats and the media doing soul searching after November. What are their plans? Are they going to change? It doesn't look it with their new head of the DNC. I guess their only game plan is what Chuck Schumer had to say when asked about a Democratic comeback. Quote, Trump will screw up. That's the soul searching the Democrats did after November's landslide victory for Donald Trump. Advice for Democrats staring at a long 2 or more years out of power. Chuck Schumer said, just wait, Trump will screw up. The Senate Minority Leader and his 47-member caucus finally got their first major Trump administration stumble after last week's rescinding of a budget memo that froze huge swaths of government spending. That unexpected pullback inspired Schumer to call an audible, turning his strategy of coordinating hits on Donald Trump's blanket pardons of January 6 defendants into a focused condemnation of Trump's budgetary moves. He called Trump's move, quote, the best thing that's happened to Democrats this year, predicting it would be the first episode of many. I didn't know he'd screw up so soon, Chuck Schumer said. There's a long way to go. This is going to be a pattern. So that is, and I do find that interesting, that they were going to be focused on January 6th, as he admitted there, but instead decided, you know what, we're going to go the route of hoping that President Trump stumbles. So there you are. Oh, by the way, this comes on the heels of a new Quinnipiac poll, which Quinnipiac is considered left. Only 31% of voters view the Democratic Party favorably, while 57% hold an unfavorable view of the party, which is a 16-year high, according to Quinnipiac. In fact, that's the worst unfavorable rating to the Democrat Party since Quinnipiac started polling on this exact question. It puts Democrats an incredible 26 points underwater. On the flip side, the GOP holds a 43% favorable rating, 12 points higher than the Democrats, and a 45% unfavorable rating, 12 points lower than Democrats. The GOP is only 2 points underwater. Now, President Trump, however, is 3 points above water with a 46% job approval rating compared to a 43% job disapproval rating. Trump's overall job approval rating in the Real Clear Politics average poll of polls is 49.4% approved to 44.8% disapproved. So just covered a lot right there, kind of just something to consider. And, as the rule goes, 2026, when Governor Hochul, if she makes it that far in a primary against Richie Torres, if she is running against a Republican, a lot can happen between now and 2026. So that'll be fascinating to watch as we see her poll numbers also not looking the best. And Richie Torres coming out as Mr. Public Safety, even though his background does not prove that that's where his position is. But that looks like that could be a primary if all goes as stands right now. So a primary with Richie Torres and Governor Hochul. And then right now, he probably won't be the only one, but he's the one that's been out front and center, and that is Mike Lawler, who we just mentioned moments ago when it came to the delay or the attempted delay that Democrats are putting through of a special election to fill Elise Stefanik's seat. So there you go. That's a little bit of everything right there. But let's take a short break. Stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
In today's world, securing your business is more important than ever. Protected with Boss Security's state-of-the-art alarm systems. When seconds matter, trust the experts. Boss Security is proud to safeguard local businesses across the Twin Tiers. Contact Boss Security today.
In a game of few words, Urkel, glasses, nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and 5:30 on Big Fox.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
Sheldon and Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox. Fox website
website is here, now, WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news, here, now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. As promised from a little bit earlier on in the program, here is an update on that 60 Minutes interview. The Federal Communications Commission Chairman Brendan Carr plans to put the investigation into allegedly biased editing by 60 Minutes into high gear after CBS News hands over the full transcript of its controversial interview with Kamala Harris. This is an example after coming back from 2020 where you had social media censoring the laptop story, and then you saw right before this election questions on CNN's editing process, making Kamala look better. And so anyway, Trump gets involved, sues. But now the FCC is taking it over. Carr vowed to launch a probe following a complaint by the Center for American Rights, a conservative activist group, which argued that the long-running show favorably edited the October sit-down with Kamala Harris. With an exclusive interview to the New York Post, Brendan Carr said the FCC has had a prohibition against news distortion on our books for 50 years. It applies to broadcasters, but not cable. A group brought a non-frivolous complaint. So the FCC is taking the next appropriate step and adjudicating the issue. He has not ruled out taking testimony from 60 Minutes producers and correspondent Bill Whitaker, who conducted the Harris interview. People close to the matter told the New York Post. So he will be taking additional steps. No decision has been made. CBS News begrudgingly agreed to hand over the transcript over the weekend after first balking at the demand by Trump, who has sued the Paramount Global-owned network for $10 billion for deceptively editing the Harris interview. They're looking at maybe settling. This could be maybe one of the ways that is done through the release of the transcript. Carr has yet to receive the document, but is expecting to have it in hand before the end of business yesterday. We have not gotten an update on that. CBS said in a statement that Carr alerted the network last week about the inquiry and asked for the full, unedited transcript and camera feeds from our interviews with Vice President Harris, which aired on October 7, 2024. We are working to comply with that inquiry as we are legally compelled to do. While the transcript demand refers specifically to the complaint filed by Carr, the outcome of CARR's investigation has broader ramifications for Paramount. People close to the FCC told the Post the FCC is in the middle of reviewing Paramount's $8 billion merger with independent studio Skydance, and Carr is said to be weighing whether CBS's news overall coverage was politically biased against Trump and Republicans in general during the 2024 election cycle, as had been alleged. So that's kind of a quick update that they are going to review this very quickly. I'm not sure what we will find out, how much of the transcript and video we will see. If Carr finds that there was deceptive editing, he could not only rule in favor for the Center for American Rights, but also throttle the Paramount Skydance deal, which is set to close by March. Among the potential remedies, Carr could demand concessions to ensure future fairness as a condition for final approval. Trump could use whatever evidence comes from Carr's investigation to advance his lawsuit against the network as well. They are in very preliminary talks, sources said, of perhaps a settlement. Tiffany Network has denied there was any bias, but may want to get rid of the legal scuffle with the president, similar to Disney's decision to settle a defamation lawsuit brought by Trump against George Stephanopoulos on This Week. In a statement at the time of Trump's lawsuit, CBS News said, when we edit any interview, whether a politician, an athlete, or movie star, we strive to be clear, accurate, and on point. But see, they were cocky in a way at the time because, remember, knowing that they're going to get away with it, at least in their mind being the legacy media, they played a different answer to the question being asked during one broadcast in a promo for the broadcast, and then in the final broadcast, a completely different answer to the same question. You've got to know that it's going to be noticed. It's going to be, but they thought that they were untouchable, especially if you go under the mindset that they believed that Harris was going to ultimately win. And if Harris did win, you would never hear anything more about this transcript. You would hear no more about the biased interview. And we made that prediction at the time and talked about that extensively at the time. The bias was on display, as it is claimed, in the 2024 election cycle. They point to the constant fact-checking of Trump running mate J.D. Vance during the vice presidential debate hosted by the network. Yes, and the Sunday morning shows and the just hate and vitriol for J.D. Vance, Tom Cotton, Mike Johnson. It's so prevalent they don't even try to hide it anymore. Now, 60 Minutes producer is defiant as the parent company mulls settling the Trump lawsuit in specifics. Bill Owens, who has led the long-running program since 2019, took a tough stance against Trump during a Monday staff meeting. Again, proving the bias, right? This coming from the New York Times. Quote, "There have been reports in the media about a settlement and or apology. The company knows I will not apologize for anything we have done." The edit is perfectly fine. Let's put that to bed so we can get on with our lives. If it was perfectly fine, why then hide it? Why not release a transcript earlier on? Now, their excuse they use is they don't want people questioning their editing, but they've released transcripts in the past. So why is this the one where they decided not to after having their hand caught in the cookie jar, or I don't know, being so blatant about it by showing the different answers to the same question? So no, again, a lot of people suggested maybe it was to cut out a word salad, or to not make her look bad, to try to protect her. But again, they brought this upon themselves by not releasing the transcript or the full unedited video earlier on. Okay, got a few other things we could talk about. I know we've covered a lot this morning, and at the top of the program, we talked about the tariffs. Your thoughts on the tariffs? It looks like a good deal that America received from Canada and Mexico. Right now, the Chinese tariffs started at 12:01. Have not heard any updates on that, but we can continue to check and see if anything comes from it. Trump has said that he will speak with China, negotiate with China within 24 hours. This was yesterday, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. But your thoughts on the tariffs? That seemed to be the big news story of the day, but also you have Pete Hegseth visiting the border. You had El Salvador agreeing to take illegal migrants in to their prison. So it was a very busy day for Trump and the Trump administration. Your thoughts in general? We have a couple things here about the confirmation process and maybe a couple other stories quickly on the way out the door that we'll try to breeze through. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will be right back.
Thirty-two teams started a journey. 2 are left standing.
Both teams look unstoppable right now.
GMFB Overtime has everything you need to know to get game ready for Super Bowl.
This is what it's all about.
With in-depth on-site pregame coverage.
This is everything.
And Monday, don't miss our extensive post-Super Bowl 59 show from New Orleans.
Will there be beignets?
Your road to Super Bowl 59 starts here on GMFB Overtime.
The Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app.
For the touchdown!
Yeah, yours. Your teams. Your highlights. Your scores. Your stories. Just choose your favorites to get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
And of course, stream your teams live. The best part is free with your pay TV subscription. Grab your Fox Sports app today.
Summer with
diamond in it?
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's read some viewer comments. That's great news that Trump is gaining ground in New York. Now we have to turn the state red. Go Republicans, get her done. Thank you very much for that comment. Ken writes in, I heard a legacy media report talking about the tariffs, recanting the Democrats' talking points that Trump ran on lowering prices and now is imposing tariffs which will raise prices. They continued on saying that the Biden economy was already starting to lower inflation, but now that will be reversed. It made me think again that people don't understand inflation. When the rate of inflation is lowered, prices don't go down. They just don't keep raising as fast. The Democrat policies do nothing to reduce prices. To reduce prices to the consumer, you have to reduce prices along the supply chain somewhere. The only logical place to reduce prices in the supply chain is to reduce the cost of oil and natural gas. Everything the Democrats do on energy raises the cost of energy. The Trump administration is working to flood our economy with cheap oil and natural gas, which will actually reduce costs to the consumer. Thank you, Ken. Yes, I think there's been a lot of misleading natures of articles and stories on the tariffs. We saw CNN suggest that it was actually Trump that blinked, that cowered in all this. And I think they do that, especially at CNN, to try to get a rise out of him. That was Jim Acosta's whole thing. I know he's no longer there, but proving with that article this morning that Jim Acosta may be gone, but the mindset and the bias at CNN is still very much there. A quick update. There is a new survey out of Ohio Republican primary voters conducted on behalf of the Club for Growth PAC, and it found that none other than Vivek Ramaswamy is the predominant leader of the Republican gubernatorial primary. That's why it has been said that he left Doge so that he could run for Ohio governor. Well, again, this is a primary poll, but Ramaswamy leads with 57% of the vote. Behind him is the state attorney general, David Yost, at 26%. And in third place at 6% is Ohio Treasurer Robert Sprague. 10% remain undecided. So just a name that we haven't talked about in a little while, as he left Doge pretty early on. I mean, that was right around, inauguration maybe? Where he left Doge, and now Musk is leading the charge. Trump's AG, Attorney General nominee, Pam Bondi, who did a great job at her confirmation hearing, inches closer to Senate confirmation as she passed a key vote. As legislators voted yesterday to end debate over her nomination, lawmakers voted 42 to 46 along party lines, setting up a final confirmation vote for early Wednesday. So we'll know tomorrow whether or not Pam Bondi will be the U.S. Attorney General. The former Florida Attorney General has cleared the Senate Judiciary Committee in a 12-10 vote last week, despite strong Democratic opposition. You're seeing more and more opposition from the early days, where some were at least kind of more easily put through. But there's a lot of fights ahead, of course, when you look at specifically Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I loved your thoughts on his chances. Do you think he'll get in? What are your thoughts about him in general? It seems to be a pretty big crowd of people on this program that are supportive of him. We've had a few people that are questioning him, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Chuck Grassley said, what we learned is that she is a tough but fair career prosecutor who built her reputation by enforcing the rule of law. Bondi was lauded by Republicans for her long career as a prosecutor, but was bashed by Democrats for her part in publicly raising concerns over the legitimacy of Trump's 2020 election loss without real evidence. Quote, the president has repeatedly threatened to weaponize the justice system against those he feels have wronged him, and that's a long list, said Dick Durbin. Miss Bondi undermines our democracy by joining President Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. It appears she does not reject that decision. The prosecutor, who served as the Sunshine State's Attorney General from 2011 to 2019, tried to ease the party's concerns, saying, "Senator, what I can tell you is I will never play politics. I won't play politics with an ongoing investigation like you did, leaking your colleague Devin Nunes's memo." That's what I liked so much about her. That was against Adam Schiff, of course. I like the fact that Adam Schiff thought that he was going to have numerous gotcha moments, and instead was taken aback by some of the answers, didn't know how to respond. And it's always interesting when you see the showboating and someone thinks they really have a great line of attack or a great gotcha question, and it backfires, because whatever you want to say about politicians, many of them in Washington believe that they are the smartest person in that room. They're not expecting any kind of pushback from someone seeking the nomination, seeking the confirmation, I should say. The Floridan replaced Trump's original AG pick, Matt Gaetz. We know all about that. So Pam Bondi closer to confirmation as we wait patiently to find out where that is going. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, who is another, as if you're watching the legacy media, is, the comment would be controversial pick or loyalist. Moderate Senator Suzanne Collins has backed Tulsi Gabbard's bid to become Director of National Intelligence ahead of key committee votes, which will take place today. That's a significant boost for her prospects. Collins, who isn't afraid to go against the GOP, having voted against Pete Hegseth last month, praised Gabbard's push to downsize the office of the Director of National Intelligence. After extensive consideration of her nomination, I will support Tulsi Gabbard to be the Director of National Intelligence. The office of the Director of National Intelligence, however, has become far larger than it was designed to be, and Ms. Gabbard shares my vision of returning the agency to its intended size. The Maine Republican helped write the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004, which established the DNI position in the aftermath of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks to enhance coordination between the 18 federal intelligence agencies. Gabbard sat before the Senate Intelligence Committee last week and was greeted by a handful of skeptical Republicans who were leery of her past record on key national security flashpoints. And you've got to remember, too, she was a Democrat at one point. So, again, you can understand that's kind of what Robert F. Kennedy's dealing with right now as well. But Collins previously sounded skeptical of Tulsi Gabbard and grilled her during the hearing last week about whether she ever met with any known members of Hezbollah. Noting the speculation in the press, she said, "No, it's an absurd accusation." Prior to the hearing, Collins also seemed unconvinced by Gabbard's change of heart on Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act Section 702, which gives the feds broad power to conduct surveillance on non-Americans living overseas. So we know about her hearings. We know about what was said at those hearings. But with Collins' backing of Tulsi Gabbard, that is a major boost for her prospects being in DNI. Collins is ranked the most moderate Republican in the upper chamber by GovTrack. She's also been dubbed the most bipartisan member of the chamber by Lugar Center and the Georgetown University McCourt School of Public Policy. Collins, Murkowski are normally the ones that are toughest to break through on. They're very often going to vote with Democrats, especially on what you would deem as more important issues that have become very, very frustrating in the past. When we come back, we're going to talk about RFK Jr. for just a moment, as we're covering, I don't know how many topics we've covered this morning, but from state issues to local issues, we appreciate it. Comment from a viewer named Mark. Ken, you are totally right. Everything revolves around fuel. Lowering fuel prices will lower prices of goods. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Thank you for the waves coming in. Keep those comments coming in. Your thoughts on the tariff decision or negotiation yesterday. I'd love to hear from you on that. Stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
What do you do when your tire goes flat?
and there's no air anywhere. You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast and so convenient. It's like the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires on a single charge. It has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system for the factory direct price of just $79.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free, and we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-977-4997. That's 1-800-977-4997, or go to getbullseyepro.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Just saw this come across my desk, and we may talk about a little bit here about New York education in general. But the SUNY leader, the State University of New York Chancellor John King, is just announced what he received for a pay raise this year. We know that there's been some questions with SUNY when it comes to the kind of the anti-Semitism on college campuses and the like. His total compensation now tops out at more than $1 million, and he got a $125,000 pay raise. That's John King, the State University of New York's chancellor. King's base salary was increased from $750,000 to $875,000. The pay bump includes a monthly $15,000 housing stipend, and an increase from $12,500. He previously received $4,000 a month to travel between New York and his home state of Maryland, an allowance that ended with the pay raise. So yes, not even living in New York as the chancellor of SUNY. Maybe time to look into that a little bit, perhaps. Wow, those numbers are staggering. Comment from a viewer. Canada should realize Trump will open up the Keystone and other pipelines, making Canada great again. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think Trudeau has as much of a problem with Trump as he lets on, but he has to put on that show. Obviously coming to agreement with that tariff. To give Trump, I think it was very successful, both what Mexico and Canada gave for border security. So putting that tariff on 30-day hold. RFK Jr., just quickly here, RFK Jr.'s vote is a big test for Bill Cassidy. Bill Cassidy's struggling, and the Washington Post put a whole 5, 6, 7-page article together about how he struggles because he knows politically it's good to vote for Kennedy. He knows as a physician he has trouble with it. And a lot of this coming from anonymous sources. So Bill Cassidy could be the tough vote here. A lot of people not thinking, well, seeing the writing on the wall that they believe that RFK Jr. will not get it, but anything can happen. The New York Post editorial board, who has been very negative towards RFK, says the hearings remove all doubts. RFK is not fit to lead a key federal health agency. His testimony did nothing to change anyone's mind. Take his refusal to deny a link between vaccines and autism, despite mountains of scientific evidence refuting any such connections. And we don't have to go through all his quotes. We watched the confirmation hearing ourselves. We can decide for ourselves. And then they just go through some of the takeaways from the hearing that they did not care for. But Kennedy has spent a near lifetime promoting a dangerous outright lie about vaccines, even in the face of hard proof that they work. That might have dissuaded many people from getting them and then later contracting illnesses that could have been prevented. And by coincidence, his anti-big pharma claims just so happen to supply ammunition for fellow lawyers suing those companies. Kennedy's bizarre beliefs go even further, and I don't want to go through all of them. True, he does. There's too much wackiness, it says here, in his background to trust America's health to such a figure. Senators need to block RFK Jr.'s nomination and keep America healthy again. Keep America healthy again. It's a weird way of wording that, isn't it? That is the thoughts of the New York Post, but I would love to hear your thoughts on RFK Jr.'s chances. It is going to be I think difficult, but I think they knew that from the beginning. Could it be a Hegseth scenario where J.D. Vance has to get called in to be the tie-breaking vote? Hegseth, of course, yesterday, we mentioned it already, but was at the southern border saying we're going to hold this line. And I thought he did raise a good point. People his age and younger have been in foreign wars and protecting other countries' borders for decades. That here's a scenario where we need to protect our own. I thought it was a very important line. I got to watch some of that. I'm sure you all did. A little bit of his visit there with Tom Homan at the southern border. So much going on, obviously, on immigration. One last thing on the confirmation process. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, claimed on CNN's The Lead, again, we talked about CNN earlier on, where they suggested, Stephen Collinson specifically, suggesting that Trump lost the tariff negotiations yesterday, that he was the first to blink. Well, they also had Chris Murphy on and asked what it takes to serve in the Trump administration. You must have, quote, affection for racist and misogynist philosophy. That's Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut. My understanding is that he is up for the post. I'm not sure, or Darren Beatty. Listen, he sounds particularly dangerous. The brazen chauvinism and racism. He also has been a very frequent apologist for the Chinese genocides. He says that the United States should have no interest in protecting Taiwan, and he should, in fact, hand Taiwan to the Chinese. He has really radical views, but I don't know. They don't seem super different than Elon Musk, who has amplified vicious anti-Semitic information on Twitter, who gave the Hail Hitler salute on Inauguration Day. It seems to be standard that the qualification to serve in the Trump administration is affection for racist and misogynist philosophy. So this guy is dangerous, but there seems to be people like him being peppered throughout Trump's government. Tapper then said, just for whatever it's worth, the Trump team says that wasn't a Hail Hitler salute. See, that's one thing I think is interesting about these lawsuits from Trump. They're realizing now that they can't play fast and loose with what quotes they try to throw around or what kind of allegations they throw around. Because if you look at what George Stephanopoulos did, it ended up costing his network, what was it, $15 million to go towards Trump's presidential library, which talk about the media that has such a disdain for him having to pay for his library. There's something very beautiful about that. And you've heard me say in the past that I would absolutely hope that they have a brick there. You know how very often they do fundraisers with bricks, so your name will forever be at the presidential library. They should have a brick for George Stephanopoulos. But $15 million for that, $1 million for his lawyer fees. So that's just giving you both sides. But I do have to take a short break. I see some comments coming in last minute. This is our last break before we wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I've got to say, we covered a lot today. And thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the waves. Hard to believe how much news happens in the Trump administration in a 24-hour period. And today we had quite a bit of New York as well. So get your last minute comments in so I can read them on the air. We're going to go through just a couple quick stories right here at the end. So stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Are you ready for winter in New York State? Ready for thrills like this? Discoveries like this? Views like this? Are you ready to make memories? Plan the perfect trip or have an impromptu getaway. It's time to explore everything that makes New York easy to love. Discover more at iloveny.com.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife Catherine.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street Corning. A comment from a viewer saying, good morning, Frank. Good morning. I'm thinking, if I'm right, Collins' term will end this year, so perhaps she thought this might help her gain another term in 2026. Yeah, she's actually up for re-election in 2026. That she's going to run for a 6th term. That's Susan Collins that we're talking about. 6th term. I'm hoping too little too late and more people will be aware. Yes, a comment from a viewer. A visit to the border already took place. It took Harris a long time to even consider it. Yes, very much so. Okay, as we wrap up, Trump's DOE is investigating 5 universities, just as an update from a story we brought to you extensively at the time, including Columbia, over alleged anti-Semitic harassment. As we know, that Biden, and specifically Harris, never really had anything with teeth to go after this. The U.S. Department of Education is launching an investigation into 5 colleges, including Columbia University, over allegedly widespread anti-Semitic harassment following the tumultuous spring term where anti-Israel protests escalated on campuses. Under President Trump's direction, the DOE will be probing Northwestern University, Portland State University, the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, alongside Columbia. Kind of surprising that Cornell was not in there. We know that became a hotbed at one point. The anti-Israel demonstrations stretched from colleges in Maine all the way to Alaska and sometimes turned into violent clashes with pro-Israel counter-protesters at Columbia and other schools under investigation. So this comes as welcome news to actually have some type of enforcement mechanism behind it. Comment from a viewer. Hi, Frank. Hi. RFK will be voted in. Okay. America is watching. Second point, this is a republic. When a politician says we are a democracy, they lose all credibility. Thank you very much from that viewer. Finally, oh boy, I'm out of time. Did you see the dramatic video? Like I said, the news cycle around Trump it's nonstop. There's dramatic new video that shows the moment U.S. military bombed a cave complex in Somalia, obliterating a senior ISIS attack planner and several other militants. This happening on Saturday. The February 1st precision airstrike ordered by President Trump and launched into coordination with the Somalian government and U.S. Africa Command took out several terrorists who, according to Trump, had threatened the U.S. and its allies. The strikes destroyed the caves they live in and killed many terrorists without in any way harming civilians. Our military has targeted the ISIS attack planner for years, but Biden and his cronies wouldn't act quickly enough to get the job done. I did. U.S. Africa Command confirmed that no civilians were killed or injured in a press release, adding that protecting civilians remains a vital part of the command's operations to promote a more secure and stable Africa. All right, we are out of time for today's edition, Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everybody who sent in comments, everybody who was a part of the discussion. I feel like we covered a lot in our 2 hours on the air. I did want to just send you out one last quick reminder for our friends at the Corning Rotary. There is a pancake supper tonight if you're looking for something after work. 4:30 till 7 p.m. at the Corning Painted Post High School Cafe. You see all the information there and hear some great music by Punxsutawney Phil and the Repeats. Just wanted to send you one last quick reminder as we head out the door, because we always like to help our friends at the Corning Rotary. Again, thank you for all the comments this morning. We're going to have a busy show tomorrow as well, as some confirmation hearings get settled, as we find out more about the tariffs and what China has to say. Trump saying that he will talk to them within 24 hours. All that and much more. You never know what we'll be able to cover tomorrow on the program. So tune in every weekday morning, starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I look forward to it already.
It's a new year. And for millions of New Yorkers, that means more money in your pocket. For the second year in a row, the minimum wage in New York State has gone up. Both this year and next, the minimum wage is increasing 50 cents per hour. That means an additional $2,000 to spend on all the things you and your family need. Then, in 2027, the minimum wage will be tied to inflation, which means increases will match costs. New York's new minimum wage, putting money directly into the pockets of New Yorkers who need it most.